friendly. Test, test. Can you hear me? Feedback. Feedback. Okay.
Okay, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. Our presenter tonight is Lee Giobbe. He's the COO here at Fellowship Crosspoint, financial guru, numbers genius, whatever. So we're really lucky to have him speaking tonight. And so why don't we go ahead and pray, and we'll get started. Father in heaven, we thank you so much for your love, your mercy, and your grace. We thank you for Lee Giobbe, Father. We thank you for his love for you. We thank you for his commitment to you and to serving in the church. And I pray that you'd go before him tonight. I pray you'd be honored and glorified in all that's said and done. And I pray the gentlemen here, Father, you'd bless each and every one, that they would all walk away with something they can take and make life changes with through what's said here tonight. So we'll just leave it all in your hands, and all to your honor and glory, Father, in Jesus' name, amen.
So this is going to be a little bit of a different feel. So how many of you guys were here last week? And how many of you guys changed something, took something away from last week, and it was a value this week? Okay, all right. So that's really awesome to see. I'm excited that you guys are here. I don't have any expectations of being in the same zip code as what Brennan and Elder Audley shared, but happy to share some background and just some content over my experience. So first thing I want to make sure that you guys are aware of, if you haven't gotten a text with the links for Strong to Serve, it's because you never signed up or we screwed up, but most likely you never signed up. This is the QR code that you can sign up, and Donna will make sure that you get the links, because just like last week at the end of the session, at the end of tonight, we're going to send out some links for some things that I'm going to reference. And if you sign up, she will make sure that you get those links no later than tomorrow morning. So you do not have to sign up every week. It's just once you are signed up for Strong to Serve, that means you're in the club and you're going to get the links when they're automatically scheduled. So, okay. So I know many of you know me. I've been on staff here for 2 years. I serve as the Chief Operating Officer. What you may not know is that in my prior life, I served as a wealth advisor. I was a financial advisor for 18 years. And in 2024, I actually sold my practice and was seriously contemplating for 6 months what the Lord had planned for me. And so just so that you understand, clients in 30 states, $150 million under management, had clients with crazy net worths up to like $20 million. Mostly Christians, but it was a biblically based practice. And that's what many clients sought us for, and that's a lot of the content that I'm going to share with you tonight. Because if you're not aware of it, the Bible actually says a lot about money and finances and stewardship. And so if you were looking, because you thought this was going to be like a Christian financial planning seminar, well, I'm sorry to disappoint, because you can get financial advice anywhere. If you're looking for a referral to a biblically based financial advisor, I'm happy to refer you to the team that bought my practice. They're in Jersey, they're all over the country, and it's something that I can happily talk to you about afterwards. But okay, so there's going to be some things for you guys to write down. We're actually going to get into the Word. And so I'll get to that in a minute, but I want to give you just an overview. So after 20 plus years of really examining the Bible in terms of what it has to say about finances, we can boil it down to like 3 things that I've learned. Number 1, I'm not the owner. I own nothing. And I'm going to unpack that a little bit. But number 2, financial strength is not measured by how much you own or how much you make, but it's measured by how faithfully you steward what God has entrusted to you. And number 3 is we need a biblical framework to change how we think about money. That is really the most important thing. We need to look at how we think about money as fundamentally having some things that are kind of keeping us derailed. And I'll unpack some of that. So, overview of our time tonight. I'm going to give you 7 key points. They're going to be up on the screen. There's going to be 5 action steps, and we're going to take some Q&A because I definitely want to make sure if you guys have some questions, we can talk about that and go through things. So, as I said, a lot of people, a lot of Christians are shocked to hear how much money, finance talk is in the Bible. Here's some stats. There are 2,350 verses on money and possessions. In the first 3 Gospels, 1 out of roughly every 10 verses has to do with money and stewardship. Jesus used money, possessions, stewardship as a main point or major illustration in over 40% of his parables. So, okay, 2,300 verses on money, possessions. Well, let's compare that. There's about 500 on faith and prayer. 500 faith and prayer, 2,400 on money and possessions. Why is that? I believe it's because God knew then and God knows now that our attitude towards money is actually an indicator of where our hearts are. I want to give you a couple of verses. First one, Matthew 6, 19 to 21. This is actually a personal favorite of mine. Do not lay up or store up for yourselves treasure on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal, but lay up for yourselves treasure in heaven where neither moth nor rust destroys and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Jesus spoke so much about money because he knew it was a heart issue. And a little tweak on that yellow highlight, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. An easy way, if I were your advisor, to determine what your treasure is, I'd look at where your earthly treasure flows to. Just want to say that in a different way. As an advisor, I could look at your budget, because what I learned real quick is that as an advisor, when people are comfortable talking to you about money, nothing is off the table. Nothing at all. It's crazy. It's like, oh, I'm going to open up my checkbook. You're going to see what I spend my money on? Oh, okay, he's a friend. You know, we could talk about whatever. And we often did. Well, it's real easy to see what's important to you based on where you spend your money. Now, I'm not saying like, oh, well, if my mortgage is bigger than my tithe, oh, I care about my house and my identities. No, we're not talking about amounts. But if you want a real easy indicator of what's important to you, think about where you spend money effortlessly. Effortless spending. That might be an indicator of what really matters to you in your heart. Or maybe it's that area that the wife, she challenges you on golf spending or the boat or something, or your trips. And you lash out a little, or I lash out a little bit more aggressively than is warranted for the situation. That might be another red flag. But where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Also, Luke 16:13. You cannot serve God and money. Money uniquely competes with God for the throne of our hearts. So I want to ask you a couple of questions. What would happen if God asked you to sell 50% of what you own and give it away? Are your finances serving God's kingdom? If I or your advisor or an outside party looked at your monthly budget, what would it say are your top priorities? Okay, we're going into our 7 points. Point number 1, these aren't groundbreaking. God owns everything. Now, I know a bunch of you guys prefer to use the Bible on your phone, and that's fine, but we're actually going to get into the Word tonight. And so Crosspoint has put these under every chair. I'm going to ask you to grab one of these in front of you, and for each of these points, we're going to read a verse, because I think there is something important about seeing God's Word on the page, and I want us all to experience that together. And so I'm going to give you the page numbers. First one is page 458. 458, and this is Psalm 24:1. Psalm 24:1. Page 458, Psalm 24:1 says, "The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and those who dwell therein." Everything we possess is God's. There's a litany of verses that talk about how God owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, the silver and gold are his. Everything is God's. You never see a hearse pulling a U-Haul. If it is, it'd be weird. We came into this world with nothing. We will leave this world with nothing. And I, for one, am thankful that I don't know when exactly I'm leaving this world. But it will happen at some point in the blink of an eye, and I will take nothing with me. That means that while we are here, we are stewards or managers. Steward is one of those Christian words. It's like, what does that mean? We are managers, temporary managers. If someone were to loan you a $100,000 truck, you would take exceptionally good care of it. At least I would. I'd be scared, I'd be parking at the end of a, parking lot, I'm not gonna be, getting the closest spot to ShopRite or wherever I'm going. I would be concerned because it's not mine. I have to give it back to the owner. Our money is God's truck. We need to remember that it is not ours. So the application here of God owns everything, instead of asking, can I afford this? We should be asking, would God want me to use his money this way? Now, am I saying that practically every time you walk into Wawa to get a coffee, do you need to stop and pray and ask for an answer before you buy that cup of coffee? No. But I think getting into the habit of that as a mindset would be incredibly important. Financial strength, it begins with understanding what our role is. And our role is not owners, it's manager, temporary managers. And the reason that that's important, that's the first step of the 7, is because behavior follows a belief pattern. I'm just gonna use an example. If I'm a heavy drinker and I think there's no problem with it, if I'm able to understand, oh wow, okay, that's not right, I've got an issue, this is dangerous, this is hurting me or my family, etc. Behavior becomes easier to change after the beliefs change. We have to change our beliefs about whether we are owners. Number 2, spend less than you make. I know it sounds really, really simple, right? It's really shocking how few people actually do it. I believe the number one reason that people don't do it is because they don't know the numbers. They don't know the numbers. I recognize that husband and wife, there are different gifts and there are different values, and you don't all have to have the same level of involvement with your budget. But just because somebody else is spending more of the money and therefore managing the household finances does not give us the green light to just say, well, now I love her and frankly I want to keep having sex, so I'm not going to challenge her on anything financial. Okay? We need to make sure that we are spending less than we make. Okay, second verse to look up, page 543. Page 543. This is Proverbs 21:20. Does anyone feel comfortable reading it? Proverbs 21:20 on page 543. Fire away, sir. Yep. Okay. Precious treasure and oil are in a wise man's dwelling, but a foolish man devours it. God is basically saying the wise save for the future. If you don't have anything saved at the end of the month, you're a fool. I'm not saying it. This is God's word. If you devour all that you have, you're a fool. I would argue if you don't know at the end of the month whether you have devoured everything that you have, you're a double fool. We're a double fool. And I've been there. Okay? You want to know this fascinating thing? So I got married, and Courtney was, I was an advisor and was early in my career, and Courtney was all too happy to give me her little financial box. And, we're married for a couple months, and we are trying to, save for some. Actually, it's a couple years in. We've had a couple kids, and we're trying to save for a minivan. That's what it was. And so Courtney was like, "Hey, can we take a look at the budget?" And I was like, "Sure, babe. I could take it down your level. Dumb it down a little so you understand things." I wasn't saying this, so I presented her all this great detail, and all of our spending, tracking. She's like, "Lee, this is great. I love the detail. Thank you so much." But what I don't see is what the projections are. All I had been doing was tracking all of our spending. The difference between that, which is just cash flow tracking, and a budget is actually taking that, prioritizing the 45 things that you spend in a month, putting them in order, 1 through 45. And if you only have enough income for 40, you draw a line, and the last 5, they come off the checking account. I didn't have that. Okay? That was a humbling moment. We need to not presume that we have it all together. Every single person in this room has made a mistake with money. Every single time I sit down with a client, oh man, I really paid the stupid tax on this or that. We all have a story. Okay? Practical challenge. If you're making 60 grand and you spend 55 grand, you're getting stronger. If you make 160 grand, but you spend 170, you're actually getting weaker. Point number 2 is spending less than you make. Income, it doesn't create wealth. Income is irrelevant. Margin creates wealth. I'll never forget one of my first clients made $500,000 a year, 20 years ago. Go to their house, gorgeous Viking appliances. It's in Haddonfield. They got a shore house. It's great. And they were like distraught because they're like, "Lee, every time we sit down and do our taxes, it makes us sick because we got nothing left over at the end of the year." That scared the living daylights out of me because income means nothing if you don't have a plan for it. Margin is what creates wealth. So you don't have to look this one up, but Proverbs 6:6-8 says, "Go to the ant, O sluggard, consider her ways and be wise. Without having any chief, officer, or ruler, she prepares her bread in summer and gathers her food in harvest." Tough decision. Save before you spend. That's a best practice. Proverbs repeatedly praises preparation. Noah built the ark before it rained. Joseph, oh, he's my man. He's the first financial planner in the Bible. Joseph stored grain before the famine. If you do not have an emergency fund, this needs to go high on your list. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on, Dave Ramsey, things. We'll have a link for that, later, which would allow you guys to get access to that stuff for free. But basically, in short, an emergency fund is just taking your monthly budget, what you spend, times that by 3 to 6, and save that. You want that sitting in an account. In my experience as an advisor, emergency funds were one of the most difficult things to get into clients' minds. They're like, "Oh, well, I've got credit cards. I'll just put it on a credit card." Adding debt in an emergency, not smart. Okay? Having a rainy day fund so that if something hits the fan, you get injured, spouse gets injured, you lose a job, this is critical. That is what allows you to not add stress to an already crazy, stressful environment. Here's the numbers though. 30% of people have nothing saved. And 60% of people could not cover a $1,000 expense without borrowing it or putting it on a credit card. Over half the people could not have an expense for $1,000 without major stress. I'm not asking for hands, but I want you to ask yourself, if you needed $1,000, could you get it tonight? If you can't, I guarantee you there's an element of stress in your financial life that you can remove by having a proper emergency fund. All right? So preparation, that's biblical. What does it mean practically? It means living below your lifestyle. It means instead of a raise, it means a new truck. Or a raise means a new boat. Or a raise, my vacation gets bigger. While giving stays the same, saving stays the same. We want to target increasing our savings before we increase our lifestyle. Whenever you receive a raise, I would advise clients, increase your giving, increase your savings, live on some of it. Not one of these advisors that's like, oh, you got a raise, an extra 15 grand a year? Oh, no, it's got to go all towards savings, or, oh, you got to give it all. No. God says that everything is for our good pleasure and enjoyment. We need to be mindful and wise. Financial strength begins by spending less than you make and building margin. Number 3, avoid the bondage of debt. Okay, I need somebody to read Proverbs 22:7. Proverbs 22:7, that's on page 544. You have to turn one whole page. Who can read Proverbs 22:7 for me? Go ahead. The rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is the slave of the lender. I'm going to give you some characteristics of all debt. Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about, okay, there's some differences between maybe a little good debt and bad debt, but we don't start with that because I want to give you some characteristics of all debt. Debt steals options. I don't care what it's for. Debt steals options. It mortgages the future. It can create stress, and it limits generosity. I have a mortgage. I don't want you to stand up here and be like, oh, did Lee save for 15 years before he bought his house? No. But understanding how it can impact the future. You lose your job, mortgage payments still due. Understanding that debt mortgages the future is very important to understand. Now, yes, are there some slight differences between good debt and bad debt? Yes. I think people tend to jump all over that a little bit too quickly. Oh, this is good debt, it's 0%. No, interest rate does not impact whether it's good debt or bad debt. Generally speaking, good debt involves assets that are appreciating, like a house. Cars don't appreciate. Trucks don't appreciate. The focus of a vehicle, now I'm not saying you can't have something fun, but all vehicles depreciate. It's just a matter of how quickly. You buy a brand new vehicle, it's going to depreciate a lot quicker those first couple of years. You can have new cars. You can have used cars. The way most people who are really wise with money, they try to lose their money in depreciating assets as slowly as possible. That's why cars in that 3 to 10-year-old window are generally wise. The first 2 years, they lose so much money. So in that 3 to 10-year slot, that's why it loses its value a little bit per year. I'm not saying that, if you buy a new car, you're sinning. But let's be mindful here, okay? Appreciating assets, reasonable mortgage, bad debt, credit cards, consumer loans, anything you buy simply to impress people. We've all been there. here's the question I want you to ask. Am I buying memories or monthly payments? Financial strength, it doesn't willingly bind itself to debt. Okay, number 4, give first. Now, I want you to know that if I wasn't working at the church, there would be nothing different about this presentation. Obviously, gave this advice for almost 20 years. Not working for the church, I recognize that when I say give to the church, you may feel like, he just, he's compensated by the church, so, this is self-satisfying. No. Give first. Giving isn't from the leftover. It's from our first fruits. Verse to look up. It's on page 528, but it's Proverbs 3, 9, and 10. I need somebody to read Proverbs 3, 9, and 10, and it's on page 528. Go ahead, sir. Honor the Lord with your wealth and with the first fruits of all your produce. Then your barns will be filled with plenty, and your vats will be bursting with wine. The Lord has a lot to say about not testing the Lord. But as it relates to giving, it's one of those very clear instructions. He's like, if you honor me, will I not throw open the floodgates? Now, we need to be very careful here because those verses, they tend to get perverted real fast. It's like, hey, you give $1,000 to the church, I guarantee you the Lord's going to give you $1,100 or $1,001 in the next week. That's nonsense, okay? But I guarantee you, I could have so many of you raise your hand and say, hey, you know what? Lord's math, it's a little bit different than my math. When I started tithing, when I started prayerfully figuring out, okay, Lord, how do I honor you with my money? I don't know how things started working out, but they started working out in a way that didn't make sense to me. The Lord cares for obedience, okay? When the army of Israel was marching around Jericho, blowing their trumpets for 7 days, do you think that was like a tactical strategy? The sound waves are going to destroy the walls? No, the Lord was looking for obedience. When Naaman had to go wash in a dirty river, was that because, it had healing properties and it was going to make him clean? No, he's looking for obedience. God's math is different than our math. I can't explain that. But I do know that what he wants is for us to excel not just in all of our actions, but also in giving. As you see on the screen, 2 Corinthians 8:7, this is Paul, he says, but as you excel in everything, in faith, in speech, in knowledge, in all earnestness, and in our love for you, see that you excel in this act of grace also. You want to talk about practical benefits? Giving loosens the grip that money has on the heart. It loosens the grip that money has on our heart. I saw it, I've experienced it, still experience it. My heart is sinful. Oh, it's ugly. Man, I know this whenever I go over my sister Corinne's house. They have a gorgeous backyard, beautiful deck, 3 acres, gorgeous play set. It took me like 15 months to figure out why, whenever I went over my sister's house, that I'm coming home and Courtney and I are suddenly talking about the home projects that we want to get started with. Half of them would turn into fights. I had to figure that out because it's like, oh my, why is this happening whenever we go over Corinne's? Because I'm seeing something and I'm coveting it. I want it. I want something in my way. Okay? You never stop learning about how sinful your own heart is. Man, giving breaks the power of money. People who give generously, they actually worry less about money. That may seem counterintuitive, but people who give generously, they don't worry about money as much as those that are keeping their hands so tightly wrapped around what they have. Financial strength, it doesn't embrace a scarcity mindset. Scarcity mindset is that, oh, you know, there's only a finite amount of stuff out there, and if I give this, I may not be able to make ends meet. Let's be honest. In America, I don't have any slides on this. The numbers are staggering. We are the wealthiest country in the world. If you are working like 5 hours a week, you're making more than like 90% of the world. But yet, we give so much less than poor Christians around the world. And it coincides pretty perfectly with our contentment. Okay, point number 5. Building wealth is a slow and steady process. I need someone to turn to page 536 and read Proverbs 13:11. Page 536, Proverbs 13:11. Ooh, don't rip pages out of the Bible. Just kidding. Proverbs 13:11. Who's got it? Fire away. Okay, wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase it. Here's some words from Ephesians 5:15-17. Look carefully, it's on the screen. Look carefully then how you walk, not as unwise, but as wise, making the best use of the time because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the will of the Lord is. Practically, this means having a budget. I don't care if you make 7, 8 figures a year. And I know that there's some people in the room that are like that. If you do not have a spending plan, if you do not have a budget, you will be like that client of mine where you really come to grips with how much you made at tax time when you're forced to see the numbers, and you could be sick. It is critical to have a forward-looking plan, not one that just tracks where you spent your money. You should review it monthly. It should be a joint effort. And I don't just mean it comes out of a joint account. If you manage a budget and your wife's not involved, that's egregious. If your wife manages the budget and you haven't had a conversation with her about money in a long time, that's egregious. Find the middle ground there. You want to set long-term goals and make adjustments. People, I know that there's probably 15% of you in the room, you heard the word budget and you're like, ooh, budget, because somewhere, at some point, somebody abused that word and you hear the word budget and you immediately think straitjacket. That's not what a budget is. A budget is simply saying, hey, I'm going to control my money instead of just doing whatever I feel like. And here's a microcosm of how you set it up. If you don't have a budget, and everybody has to start one at some point, all you do, whether you're using checking account, debit card, credit cards, I don't care. Let's use going out to eat. The easiest thing that you do, pull the reports, look at them, and just say, hey, what's the average that I've spent over the last 3 months? Run the numbers, because you probably won't know exactly what they are, and it might actually scare you. Let's say that it's $800 a month. You go out, I don't care, once or twice a week, but the last 3 months, May, June, July, you spend $800 a month. A budget is just saying, am I okay with that number? If I'm not, and most times when people do that for the first time, they're a little shocked. They're like, whoa, that's where my money's going. And then you say, hey, you know what? Let's make it 600. Honey, what do you think about that? Sure, sounds good. Let's do it, okay? And then you track it. And the discipline comes in if during the month of August and your goal is $600, if you get to August 20th and you're like, ooh, we spent $600. Now it's put up or shut up time. It's like, hey, am I actually going to stop? Well, there's a key part of that process that you've got to have, and it's the ability to track it. And so what I want you to know is that the church actually offers you Every Dollar Premium. It's the Dave Ramsey Premier Budgeting app for free. Who's taking advantage of that? Who uses Every Dollar? Okay. Who knew that the church offers it for free? Oh, there we go. Okay, I'm happy about that. Okay? It's phenomenal. You can make these envelopes like one click, it starts your whole budget for the next month. It actually connects your bank account. It's secure. I've checked. It's fine, right? And it will pull your transactions in. And then all you do is you say, oh, okay, that's Wawa, that's gas. ShopRite, that's food. Click, 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 click. Your wife can have access. Then you look at the screen and you're like, oh, which envelopes are in the red? Maybe I'll stop spending for those envelopes. It doesn't just mean stick money for going out to eat into like, the kids' envelope, okay? A little bit of that is okay when it's appropriate, but if you're still spending the $800 a month, you're just, hiding it somewhere under the rug, not really doing the work, okay? So one of the links you're gonna get is for EveryDollar Premium. You click that, even if you already have EveryDollar, even if you're already paying for it, contact them. They'll refund you. How many strong to serve are you gonna come to? You can get money back. It's great, okay? You would sign up for financial planning. It's not Financial Planning University. It's Dave Ramsey's website, and it has access to EveryDollar Premium, but it also has access to all of the Financial Peace University videos, all of his podcasts. There's so much stuff on there. It's fantastic, okay? Next verse, page 993, 1 Timothy 6, 6 through 10. I'm going to read this one, but I want you to turn page 993. It's 1 Timothy 6, 6 through 10. 1 Timothy 6, 6 through 10. But godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into the world, and we cannot take anything out of the world. But if we have food and clothing, with these we will be content. But those who desire to be rich fall into temptation, into a snare, into many senseless and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil, all kinds of evils. It is through this craving that some have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many pangs. A pastor who I really enjoyed listening to before he passed away a couple years ago was Tim Keller, Redeemer in New York City. He points out that, with the volume of how much Jesus and Paul talked about greed, which, by the way, we kind of like pervert the word greed. We hear greed and we're thinking, oh man, this super evil little green guy, oh, I'm not, like stealing from my sister or my neighbor, I'm not great. The better word is covet. Covet. That just means we want something and it's in our heart. Whether we say something, maybe our spouses notice it a little bit more than other people. Well, he says that with how much Jesus and Paul talked, not to equate those two, but how much they talk about coveting, it would be a safer assumption that unless we have overwhelming evidence that we're not covetousness, we don't covet in our hearts, instead of having a baseline that, oh, I'm not greedy, unless you present to me crazy evidence that I am greedy or coveting, we should start with the opposite assumption. Unless you have overwhelming evidence that, no, this is just not an issue for me at all, we should assume that our default heart posture is that we do covet. There are no biblical shortcuts. Each of these could be like a conversation with clients, okay? Get rich quick schemes, come on people, okay? Ignore these things. There are no crypto miracle stories, no day trading heroes, lottery thinking. I will tell you that without a shadow of a doubt, I believe that the default posture of people's thoughts is that, oh, if I win the lottery, it's going to bring me closer to God. I'm going to be able to give more. It's going to be so awesome. No. That scares the living daylights out of me. Seriously. Money is dangerous. Now, No, I shouldn't say that. Money's not dangerous. Money is neutral, but it's dangerous when my heart has control of it. Financial strength understands that God doesn't measure financial success by net worth, but by faithfulness. God usually blesses consistency, discipline, patience, not get-rich-quick schemes. Number 6, protect your family. I need someone, this is a shorter verse, 1 Timothy 5:8, page 993. Can somebody please read 1 Timothy 5:8 on page 993? Fire away, sir.
But if anyone does not provide for his own, and especially for those of his household, he is denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever.
So, many Christian men, they work hard earning a living. Very few protect what they've built. The stats are astronomical with how few people have taken care of basics like life insurance, like estate planning. Okay, life insurance, you may not die prematurely, but estate planning documents, you will die. I know one person that hasn't died. Okay, Jesus didn't need a will. We need wills. Okay? This whole, I hope Jesus comes back before I die. Great. If that happens, I will refund you personally for what you paid to get a will done. Okay? Come see me in heaven. Okay? We need to have our estate planning documents. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, this needs to go very near to the top of your list. Okay? Estate planning documents. There's like 3. The first one is the will. It says who gets my stuff, who's going to watch my kids if they're minors, who are my beneficiaries. Okay? Number 2, it's the power of attorney for finances. So if Courtney and I are in an accident and I'm dead, but she's hurt, who's making the decisions? Even if she's going to make it, she's going to recover fully. Somebody needs to go to the bank and say, hey, PNC, Lee's got money in his account. Give me access so I can pay the mortgage. You need to have a financial power of attorney. And the other thing is your healthcare directives. Yes, people get hung up on when do I pull the plug? That's like 3% of the time. Same scenario, accident, I'm gone. Courtney's hurt. Who's making the decisions for which treatment? Tough decisions about a surgery. Who's making the call? You got to pick these people. For those that have minor kids in the room, who's going to take them if you're gone? If you have life insurance, there might actually be a lot of money. Do you want your family fighting over that? I tell people, yeah, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, you know what? You die, it's going to be horrible. You have an opportunity to speak into who you want to be number 2 on the list if number 1, you guys aren't around. But not if you don't actually write the document. I'm happy to give you an estate planning referral for right in East Hampton, Christian attorney. She's like under $1,000. She'll write all the documents for you. You will die. Get the documents done. Sorry, I'm a little bit more animated than I am in like a typical client meeting, you know. And people are laughing because there's a bunch of former clients in the room. So, okay, adequate life insurance. Dave Ramsey can cover that, okay? Saying, I love you to your family members. If I die, that Courtney going to go find a job with 6 little kids? That's a nightmare. We got to adequately protect. You can look online and figure out the numbers. Another one, disability income insurance. So this one actually, this is, not a lot of people pursue this, but it's more likely. So here's the numbers. If there's 100 25-year-old men, the numbers tell us that between 25 and 65, 40-year time span, 4 of those 100, 4% are going to die, okay? And therefore would need life insurance. But that same group of 125-year-old men, 25 of them in that 40-year time period will experience some sort of disability. A disability which means that they can't work for a short or long period of time, but yet they didn't die, which means that there's no pot of money for life insurance. Disability income insurance. I'd encourage you to look at that. How about the easy one? How about a password list? Right? I don't know about you, I have an Excel spreadsheet because there's like 1,000 passwords and they all want something different, some symbol or number or some crazy nonsense, okay? Yes, I oversee the finances. Part of how I love Courtney is that we have a password manager. Not confident she'll remember that one password. So every 6 months, I print out that spreadsheet and I put it in our safe so that something happens to me, she's not cursing my name. She's like, dang, Lee loved me. If you don't know passwords to bank accounts, might I encourage you to please get those quickly? Not because I think something untoward's happening or bad, but if your wife has all the passwords and something happens to her, your next 12 months are going to be a little bit of a nightmare on multiple levels, even if there's plenty of money floating around. Okay, financial strength, it protects our loved ones. Number 7, teach your children and finish well. If your children inherit money but not wisdom, they'll lose both. Talk to them about work, savings, giving, investments. Even if that wasn't shown to you, if you had no idea what your parents made, if you've never had a conversation with your parents about money, still, show it to your kids. If you're in a financial spot where you got grandkids or young kids and they're all in love with making stuff that you put in a drawer for like a week and then you throw away. I heard something from a client where he had like 12 or 15 grandkids, and at Thanksgiving, he'd give $100 to each of the grandkids. And he said, my present is that at Christmas time, I want you to come back and tell me how you gave this away. And yeah, okay, the 4-year-old's gonna give a $100 bill to some homeless guy, right? But it's amazing the creativity that some older single digits and young double digits, that they would come and try to be creative about giving money away. What a cool gift. And then you get to hear these stories. It doesn't have to be $100, make it 20, do whatever you want. But, as opposed to them buying you something that you're gonna chuck on December 26th, maybe consider this. Talk about these things, but recognize that more is caught than taught. Let them see your generosity. Let them see how you interact. I'm going to read this next verse. It's 1 Timothy 6, 17 to 19. It's on page 994. Again, flipping one page. Try to keep this very... 1 Timothy 6, 17 to 19. It says, as for the rich in this present age, charge them not to be haughty, nor to set their hopes on the uncertainty of riches, but on God, who richly provides us with everything to enjoy. They are to do good, to be rich in good works, to be generous and ready to share, thus storing up treasure for themselves as a good foundation for the future, so that they may take hold of that which is truly life. Paul doesn't tell wealthy Christians to become poor. He says, don't trust in riches. Be rich in good works. Be generous. Be ready to share. Financial strength understands that the goal of life is not to die with the biggest portfolio. The goal is to hear, well done, good and faithful servant. Okay, those are our 7 pieces. I want to give you these 5 action steps because, as you heard me at the end of last week, I'm an action step guy, right? If all we learn is some good information, it's kind of worthless, right? What are we going to change? Okay, here's 5 action steps, okay? Number 1, know your number. If you don't know exactly your monthly income, your monthly expenses, your total debt, and your total savings, 4 things: monthly income, your monthly expenses, your total debt, and your total savings. You cannot improve what you will not measure. Number 2, automate good decisions. Automatically transfer money every payday, givings, savings, retirement. Willpower, it's overrated. Systems work. Willpower is overrated. Number 3, cancel one thing. Choose one monthly subscription, one recurring expense. Cut it. Redirect that money towards debt, giving, savings. I took my own advice. I saw this thing yesterday. I was like, oh yeah, I should get rid of that. I was like, oh no, but I like that. You can always go back and sign up for it again. These companies will gladly retake your money after you've stopped allowing them to take your money. You can restart it in the future. Number 4, have a family money meeting. One evening a month. No arguing. Just review your spending, your goals, upcoming expenses, and pray together. A couple of things not to do. Do not make it a financial weekend. Do not make it a summit. And don't do it on your anniversary trip. Yeah. I have learned those the hard way. Oh my gosh. Even if it was good things. I have learned that with money, I can take something from the Lord and actually make it my thing and ruin it. So much so that I was like, Lord, I did this thing and I'm convinced that it's from you, but how I've botched it, I'm gonna leave it at your feet, and if it's your will, you're gonna have to change Courtney's heart. And he did. But I had to kind of get out of the way. Number 5, practice contentment. Contentment is so key. You know, I'll use an example of driving to church. It takes like 18 and a half minutes for me to drive to church. But if one Sunday I hit all the lights and I get here in 15 minutes, if I suddenly change my expectations, it's like, hey, it takes 15 minutes to get to church, and we leave at 8:45 for a 9 a.m. service or something like that, 99% of the time I'm gonna be frustrated and angry because my expectations are for 15 minutes, and that happens like 1 out of 100 Sundays. But if I have proper expectations about, hey, it's a 22, 23-minute drive, 99% of the time, when nothing changes, I won't be walking in stressed. Expectations are critical. Contentment is a choice. Before every purchase over a meaningful threshold, you and your spouse, or you need to figure that out, whether it's $250, $1,000, you should wait 24 hours. Wait 48 hours. Ask yourself, do I need it? Will this help me serve God better? Am I buying convenience or significance? Just take a look at your heart. It's not going anywhere. There's very few deals that are like, oh my gosh, you have to get it right now. I think that's what a lot of retailers try to instill in you, that, oh, okay, this is gonna go away. It's not. Earning or having more money doesn't bring contentment. You guys have probably seen the clip of Tom Brady, supermodel wife, just won his 3rd of 7 Super Bowls, new raise. He's 30 for 30 or something like that. He's like, yeah, there's gotta be something more. Take a look at all the wealthy people in Hollywood, sports stars. Do they look content? Not so much. An eternal perspective is what brings contentment. Eternal perspective. And that's really regardless of circumstances. Okay, those are our 5 action steps. I've got a couple resources that I'll share, but grateful for you kind of listening in. Do want to kind of open it up for questions. I know it was a lot. Eternal perspective brings contentment, regardless of circumstances. All right, who's gonna kick us off? I'm gonna repeat the question. Fire away, sir.
What if you want to do all these things, right?
Okay.
Your partner is just not on board.
Ooh.
I've been to financial peace twice.
Yeah.
I'm here, and I'm broken down, and I was when I started financial peace.
Okay.
So,
What do you do when the spouse is not on the same page?
yeah, like how
Okay.
without, come on, let's go.
Well, so again, goes back to that financial summit thing. I would say make decisions very slowly and prayerfully. But just as Brennan mentioned last week, if we're truly seeking the Lord in this is where that 50.1% headship comes in. Don't take it out for a spin too often. Another mistake. But honestly, that's an opportunity. And again, don't make 12 changes. Make one. So if a client came to me and said, hey, let's say wife's married, or married. Wife is a Christian, husband's not. Wife really wants to tithe. Husband's like, what are you, nuts? 10% for income? You don't give it to the church? What are you, nuts? Does God need the money? No. God wants our hearts. I would say, pray for the Lord to change the heart, and He will. He absolutely will. Great question. What else? Fire away, sir.
How do you know when you're like saving too much money when you're starting to like hoard wealth
Yeah,
versus like when you should be like giving it away?
I love it. Question is, how do you know when you've kind of overcorrected? There's two things there. One, there's the practical side, but then there's the heart side. So for me, the practical side, you can do some planning. If you don't have a trusted counselor, as simple as a friend who can, handle the math, or an advisor, then you could figure it out pretty easily online. It's like, oh wow, okay, I'm gonna have $16 million by the time I'm 65. I might be overdoing it. If it's not that egregious, I would really get some counsel. And that could be as simple as a friend of yours who you trust, doesn't have to be an advisor. Take a look at the numbers. You guys want to check in your spirit on something? Have somebody who loves you and loves the Lord most of all, take a look at what you're setting your income at if you're a business owner. Not that much. No, I'm just kidding. Like, seriously, practically, but the heart side is, ask yourself how you would respond if your wife is maybe presenting an idea where maybe you have less come out of your paycheck towards retirement. For me, what I've seen personally and with clients is that when my heart issues, my heart idols, that's really what they are, when they get challenged, that's how I respond. No, I can't do that. What do you want us to be paupers when we're 65? She's like, what are you talking about? So let's be honest. It's the wives that are usually poking those spots. They know us best. They know where the soft spots are. And it's their competing desires that usually are causing the angst. God has designed us to be better together with our spouses than individually. I had a counselor, a financial counselor actually said, Lee, because I was contemplating what to do in a situation like this, I'm going to take control, I'm going to institute these changes, right? He's like, Lee, unless you had like a burning bush style experience where the Lord spoke to you, I would submit that you should be on the same page with your spouse if she can submit and she loves the Lord. Because more often than not, I'm going to be stepping out into an area of danger that I can't see, and she can. And again, learn that the hard way. Good question. Fire away. Okay, so it's a tougher question, but how do you get started? Really, if we're setting aside the whole contentment heart side of things, if it's really a matter of, hey, how do I practically bring in enough to pay the bills? it's examining one of two things. Is the income high enough? Do I need to find some additional work? Do I need to ask the Lord for opportunities to get some side jobs? Or do I need to look at the expenses? In my experience, it's the expenses that's usually the side that's derailing things. Okay, the average car payment is north of $700 a month right now. The average car payment. Do you know that most people, when they're buying brand new cars, when they turn them in like 5-7 years later, they actually underwater? If you go to a dealership, very few of the salesmen actually know the price of the car. They know what the monthly payments are. Because that's all what people care about these days. Look at your monthly payments. Dave Ramsey can speak into that. I would strongly encourage the class. I've taught the classes for 10 years, been a part of them in 4 or 5 different churches. The stuff works. I don't care if you're making 25 grand a year, you're making 2.5 million. You don't have a plan, your money's going down the drain. I saw a hand over here. Yes, sir.
So I had this question last week and I asked it again, right? It's basically, all right, so different ages, different stages, right?
Yep.
The work you start, how do you not get overwhelmed by feeling either like, hey, you know what, I should be further along, but I'm not. How do you not get overwhelmed?
So how do you not feel overwhelmed? So if there's something else that I heard in every single client meeting, it was wanting to know that answer. Where do I stand? And as much as I wanted to answer it, it really is dependent on what your goals are. It's incredibly difficult. You know, a good financial plan is not because it's so complicated, but because it can be hard to execute on. Making decisions at difficult times, you know this, sir. It's tough for people to make decisions about not pulling their money out of investments when the market has dropped 30%. That requires some guts. That is difficult stuff. That's when you need a counselor to be like, no, Lee, we got a plan. Stick with it. That is really the first thing I would suggest. If you do not have, with a multitude of counselors, plans succeed. I would strongly encourage you. I have a financial advisor. I meet with him twice a year. I actually just talked to him last night. I'm executing mainly because of this talk. One of the things he told me to do 3 months ago. It's really about making a plan and trusting the Lord. So as I was chatting with Josh and I were chatting, talking about what does it look like to save for the future. Well, you can have these grand plans, but there's no guarantee that we're going to be around for them. I know with certainty that I'm going to heaven at some point, and God's math works differently. I'm not talking about church, I'm not talking about tithing. I personally believe that there is a multiplier effect to what I give away. And I'm not talking about when I die. When I die, if I give $1 million of my estate away, I don't think that counts because I don't need it anymore. I personally believe by giving money away, there's a multiplier effect, and I am padding my bank account in heaven. And I'm not, now, do I think that gets derailed if I'm showing off what this thing, a shiny thing I did? Look at me, he's so good, he gave his money away. No, if I'm like, Lord, hey, we've got our tithing envelope, but we've got a giving envelope, something extra, it can be so much fun to set some money aside each month that doesn't have a destination. Start with $100 a month, something small, $20 a month, $100 a month, and pray with your spouse, Lord, what do you want me to do with this? It is so much fun. And it also doesn't cause stress when you get that missionary letter and you're like, what envelope do I pull this from? It is so much fun. Make little changes. Go ahead, Larry. Ooh, when is working too much? And I know you got a second one. That's a good question. Let's be clear that when you're having regular conversations about it with someone, when someone's pressing at you and you're making excuses, that may be a sign that you're working too much. I'm not one of these types where it's like, 40 hours and a half, I got to bank that extra half an hour. Nobody likes that, right? But if you're regularly exceeding 60, 80 hours a week, if you're missing family events, if you're more comfortable at the office or at the job site, that may be an indicator that you've overstepped. Again, I would lay it in prayer. For a season, you got to do what you got to do. Let's be honest here. You want to work, get out of debt. Dave Ramsey would say, run like a gazelle, right? You want to take an extra job so that for 6 months, 9 months, you can pay off this thing that's been hanging over you. Okay, when it becomes the new normal, and let's be honest, as men, our identity is generally wrapped up in what we do. That's why it's so distressing when people retire and they don't have a plan. I don't mean money. They don't know what they're going to do. That's why people go back to work, they stay working, they never retire, they die. They're like, my identity's gone. We are more comfortable working and doing what we've been doing for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So what's the second question, sir? Yeah. I would present that to them and really talk about, hey, this is where I'm at. A lot of times, first meeting is free, and yes, they want you as a client. They need to get paid for their time, but there's a line. It's not just, let's talk to an advisor once we have all our money goals and we're progressing towards them. If it's egregious and it's like, I don't know how to make ends meet here, no, I would not add another bill. But I would find somebody to chat with, and who can take a look at things, somebody you trust that loves Jesus, and have them take a look at things. And again, there's something that Dave Ramsey would talk about that a lot of smart people get wrong is, I got 4 or 5 different types of debt here. They all have different interest rates. Let's go with the highest interest rate. Let's pay it off. That's the smartest way to get out of debt, right? Well, you didn't get into debt because of a math problem. You got into debt because of a behavior problem. You need to change the behavior. The reason that Dave Ramsey suggests that you start with the smallest balance and then you go to the next largest balance and this largest balance, regardless of the interest rates, is because there's a behavioral snowball effect when you pay off the smallest one, and now you're taking that payment and the minimum payment of the next one, and you're tackling this one and then this one. The success of following a behavioral plan is better than, let me go to the largest balance because that has the largest interest rate. Plans fail for those types of scenarios. Good outside counsel will help with that. I got time for a couple more. Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah. So the question is, when there's a good excuse for some things, how do you, not how do you derail the wife's desires, but like how do you navigate what it looks like to not be stingy but not overspend? And my encouragement would be, well, where does it go in your budget? How does it fall? Are you having those monthly conversations? It's easier to have that conversation if you've spent $595 of the $600 food budget for going out to eat. Hey, let's go out to eat. It's going to be $200. Ooh. Now our plan, which we talked about when we weren't in the moment and the kids weren't screaming for ice cream, it's a little bit easier to have a level-headed conversation. Again, another thing I've learned is when you're having like a fight on something, not the time to bring up financial changes. It's important to come back when heads are level to talk about something. I'm not implying that you're fighting about money, but go ahead, fire away, sir. Okay. Cheer is in cheerleading. Okay. Okay. So, tangibly, I think that's part of those monthly conversations, and maybe even broader. So maybe after cheer season is over, because you're not going to like quit mid-season. I think it could be worth it to actually do some math and lay out, hey, okay, yeah, well, this is the stated cost, but there's uniforms, and what about the travel, right? Sports teams, right? Oh, we're going to Virginia for a baseball tournament, hotels and out to eat. You do all that, and then you lay it out and say, hey, honey, I love cheer. I love my baby. But $2,400 a year, $200 a month. It's like a car payment, tiny car, but it's a car payment. That's a lot of money. Look at all these bills that are less than cheer. Honey, we're spending more of this than we are on food. Maybe we should take a little bit and put it in a date night envelope. Looking at things from a broader perspective really help give context. Yes, sir. Yeah. 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 Well, it just might be like a $500 scholarship. Really tougher because she's not saved, but you can still have the heart conversation. You know, like what's your desire for this? You know, you can. I know it's not sports, but I know cheerleading is in that realm. But the number of surgeries for kids 11, 12, 13 years old is off the charts. I personally don't believe that these kids are driving. I think a good chunk of it is also the parents, and it's a slow fade. I mean, how easy is it to, township team, you're the best. Well, let's do the travel team. Oh, okay, yeah, travel on Sundays? Yeah, we won't make it all. Suddenly you are. It's a slow fade, and I know you kind of said prayer, but I would just have that conversation, think big picture, pick your battles, and lead with excellence there, and I believe she will follow you. And we could definitely chat offline. I got time for one more. Fire away, sir.
What's your wisdom on being intentional with your kids? What do you do with your kids?
So I have no wisdom. The question is, how are you intentional with your kids? And I was just saying, I have no wisdom. The ideas that I have gotten primarily from the Bible and practically from 20 years of working with clients who, believers and non, who had some crazy ideas. I'm not a creative person. I see something, I tweak it, and I'm like, oh, that sounds good, let's do it. One, for my kids, we don't do an allowance, okay? An allowance is free money, okay? I don't want kids growing up depending on a welfare state. You have commissionable chores. You have chores that you do as part of the family, you don't get paid for. And then you have chores that if you don't do them, you don't get paid. If you work, you get paid. That's number one, is establishing that. I believe as parents, as it relates to money, finances, we are called, obviously, lead them to a saving faith, allow, just nurture the Lord, drawing them, to himself. But practically, for me, them being able to think critically, problem solve, and work their tails off is so important. And if they can do those things, I think that there will be a value add to society. So I try to be transparent. I'm intentional with time. Some of the sweetest time for those that have kids in Abide, our youth ministry, my two oldest of the six, I drive them every week to and from Abide, and we can talk about whatever they want. And it's all sprinkled with gospel, but I'm not afraid to go somewhere and say, hey, I don't know the answer to this. Let's dive in and take a look at what God has to say. And then just say no to them sometimes. Sounds weird, but I want to give them yes to everything, right? But I don't want them to take that into their teenage years and their adulthood. So I hope that helps. Okay, couple last points. Here's the takeaway I want for you guys. What is the one financial habit that you are going to begin this week? Are you going to create a budget? August is Saturday. This is perfect time. If you've never had a budget, download the Financial Peace thing, get the app on your phone for every dollar premium, and take a crack at it. I'm happy to help if you want. I cannot handle 55 emails, okay? I am actually off the rest of this week. But if you are truly having trouble with it, I'm happy to help. Are you gonna start an emergency fund? Pay off a credit card? Update a will? Schedule a family money conversation? Increase your generosity. Something that we did, a couple of us in my crew, my F4F crew, a couple guys that have been attending, is that we shared a text message about quiet time and some goals that we had, and I believe it was personally beneficial for all three of us. I also did it with a good friend of mine. So I had two conversations going about, hey, what's your goal for the week? I got to my car, and Bill Massey, one of the elders here, he's like, hey, great, Lee, loved your topic about takeaways. What's yours? I was like, oh, okay. And I shared it. I put it out there. Now it's public. Now I got to do it. My encouragement for you is to figure out what the 1 to 2 to 3 changes that you're going to do and text somebody in this room. Start a group chat, okay? Be like, hey, how's it going? What'd you take away? Lee talked a lot. What was your takeaway? One day, none of us are going to stand before God to explain our salary, our investment returns, size of our retirement account. It's not going to come up. We're going to stand before God as stewards. Financial strength is ultimately about faithfully managing His resources so that we can better love our families, strengthen the church, care for those in need, and advance the gospel. That is what it means to be strong to serve. Friendly reminder, Brennan's challenge starting on Saturday, 30 for 30 for 30 days. 30 minutes of strength training, 30 minutes of spiritual strength training. So 30 for spiritual, 30 for physical, for 30 days. It's going to be here before you know it. Our plan for next week, it's going to be pretty cool. Strength to protect others. Strength to protect others and neutralize threats. Yeah, that's going to be cool. Yeah, let me pray for us. Heavenly Father, Lord, I am grateful for the opportunity to share some of what was just part of a previous life. Lord, I enjoyed this. I pray that it was a blessing to those in this room. I pray that you would receive all the honor and glory, that this had nothing to do with Lee as an advisor or clients, but that you would be glorified, that every man in this room would take one step towards being a better steward, not so that their wives could see, that their kids could see, or people, friends in the church could see, so that we can stand before you and hear the awesome phrase, well done, good and faithful servant. I pray that that would be what we all strive towards. Protect us now as we head home and as we no doubt get inundated by all of the world's distractions. In Jesus' name, amen.